Thank you, colleagues. Welcome to my presentation, and thank you to the conference organizers for allowing us the opportunity to present our research. My title is The Potential Determinants of Students' Academic Success in Private Tertiary Education in South Africa. The outline of the research is that I'm going to be covering the South African context first, then I'm going to be going through the background of the study. I'm then going to go through our motivation, and then we're going to look at the objective and the research questions. Thereafter, I'm going to go through the methodology, the review of the literature, and then I will conclude on the paper. And then interestingly, we've already run the stats. So for future research, I can then also present our stats. So in terms of the South African context, historically, there's been limited access to quality education in the country. And there's a requirement that there needs to be racial transformation of the accounting profession. Black students are more likely to be academically excluded, have higher dropout rates, and have lower graduation rates in South Africa. And when I say black, for my international colleagues, that's black as defined by the government and the Department of Higher Education and Training to be Black, African, colored, and Indian students. The background of the study is that we need to identify success factors. This will help provide support to students, show us how to implement that support, and when to start providing that support. In terms of private tertiary education, there are innovative program structures where you can provide additional directed support, and that can assist with equitable student success. The motivation of the study is that my research is determinants of students' academic success, and my co-author is a lecturer of one of the first. There's also been limited research in private education in South Africa. And so potentially we could be looking at prior tertiary institution, prior attempts at programs, time lapses after undergrad degrees, whether the student selects a different class format, daytime versus after hours, different types of the use of technology, and directed mentorship programs. So the objective of our research is to establish the role of the determinants of student academic success in private tertiary institutions in South Africa. And to achieve that objective, 3 research questions are asked. Why is it important to understand the factors affecting students' academic success? How can the factors affecting that success be categorized? And then lastly, what are the factors affecting success in South Africa as reported in the literature? Our methodology is qualitative in nature. It's a directed content analysis. It's a search of the Google Scholar database and UCT databases. And all the relevant research was evaluated in terms of the research questions to identify the gap within South African literature. So in understanding student academic success, cognitive and non-cognitive learning processes are extremely complex. Measuring student success is challenging. If you think of students' attitudes, their strategies of learning, their skills and behaviors, those can't be assessed through standardized assessments. Research has most commonly been performed on educational achievements, which are GPA, credit accumulation, degree completion, time to completion, course results, etc. To underpin our research, we used the Biggs 3P model as our theoretical framework, where Biggs looks at 3 different stages of student learning. There's Presage stage, the process stage, and the product stage. Presage is broken down into personal factors and situational factors. Personal being what the student brings in, situational being what the student encounters. Process is their learning approach, and then product would be the outcome, and for our circumstances, we'll be looking at academic performance. From a personal Presage factor, we're looking at prior knowledge and experience, motivation, demographic factors. And from situation, we're looking at learning climates, how the course is being taught, etc. So the typically researched personal Presage factors are firstly age. Internationally, there have been contradictory findings. In South Africa, it's largely concluded that younger students outperform older students, and that's at all levels, both undergrad and postgrad. The next factor is gender. Internationally, most studies have found that there's no significant correlation with performance, and in South Africa, the findings have been contradictory. The third factor is race. International studies have provided varied results that are inconclusive. However, in South Africa, this is one of the 2 most important factors affecting performance. The fourth factor is language. And in South Africa, tertiary education is only offered in English and in some limited circumstances in a second language being Afrikaans. Some studies have indicated that if home language and the language of instruction are the same, then students are more likely to perform better, obviously controlling for other factors. Other studies have indicated that multilingualism may contribute to academic success, but that's only if the students are fluent in 3 or more languages. Then the fifth typically researched personal presage factor is previous academic results. And this is the single best predictor of academic performance at every level, both internationally and in South Africa. You will have noticed here that I didn't cover anything on private tertiary education because there's scant research in terms of private tertiary education in South Africa. The additional personal presage factors that we can look at from a private education perspective is prior tertiary institution. Very few institutions in South Africa accept students into postgrad from other universities, and if they do, then the numbers are very small. The only public program to do so is UNISA. Unfortunately, research on UNISA groups the students into either coming from UNISA or coming from a different institution because the numbers are so limited. A study in Brazil found that prior institution was even more strongly correlated to performance than academic performance, which, if you remember from our previous slide, was the most important factor. Then in terms of previous attempts at the program or time lapses after the undergrad degree, there's been limited research, but the little that there is seems to indicate that students have a better chance to pass at the first attempt, or if there are no time lapses after their undergrad degree. Situational presage factors are the class format selection, where we can look at daytime, which is face-to-face, or after hours, which is most often blended learning. There's been limited research in terms of class format. UNISA has done a bit of research in this, but there they looked at part-time students versus full-time students, and they found that part-time students outperformed full-time students. Then with respect to the use of technology, it's expected to improve performance. For example, using mobile apps, scanning and marking assessments, that's very relevant this year. Social media being used to foster a community. All of those help develop the relationships with the students, which is then expected to improve performance. In terms of mentorship, social support plays an important role in student academic performance. And especially in small private tertiary institutions, it's possible to provide directed, individualized mentorship programs. That's different to, for example, UNISA, which is distance learning. And last year, or beginning of this year, they had 1,200 students write the first professional accounting exam, compared to the largest residential university in South Africa, which is UCT, which provided 360 students to write the first professional accounting exam. So, in conclusion, understanding factors affecting students' academic success is important. And it's important because we want to support our students as much as possible. How can we implement that support? There are many factors which contribute to success, most notably being prior academic performance and race. Within the private education space in South Africa, how can we now look to consider prior tertiary institution, prior attempts, time lapses, class format, use of technology, and mentorship within our understanding of student academic success to provide the support that the students need.
Yeah.
Then, to conclude a little bit further, we have gone ahead and run the stats, which isn't part of this paper. It's a future paper. In terms of the sample, we looked at 269 students enrolled from 2015 to 2017. We used a hierarchical logistic regression model, with the independent variables being what I have discussed in this presentation. And the significant findings were that gender was significant, race, but not when writing the first professional accounting exam, prior academic performance, prior tertiary institution. That was only important if you didn't attempt the program twice and it wasn't for the professional accounting exam. And class selection was also statistically significant. If you were looking at performance at the university.
Sir, one more minute, please.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
If you were studying at the university, then if you chose the daytime option, then you outperformed the other class selection. Whereas if we were looking at students who wrote the first professional accounting exam, the after-hour selection resulted in outperforming the daytime students. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation. And are there any questions?